Um, I'm back with another video. I hope maybe these videos are landing and someone can enjoy or appreciate or maybe take something of value. So I want to start this first video to commend myself for being outstanding, and say that if you've come away with an original thought from this channel, the only thing I that the only thing that I would fancy as being of value that I'm achieving here is just drawing connections with what's in front of our face. Because our I was talking to someone last night, and I was like saying different random stuff, and he was saying oh, you're drawing connections. And I was thinking later that, like, there's at least like billions upon billions of connections in our mind waiting to be made. And I think that these people that we see in front of us, what you're when you're looking outside of yourself, you're actually looking into yourself. So you could as soon say that all the people you meet are a part of your own mind. They're not different than your mind, and they are. So when you're making connections between people, between ideas, it's one and the same between making connections in life and making connections in your mind. And there's billions upon billions of them waiting to be made, creatively, artistically, musically, intellectually. Like some of these videos, all that, it's just waiting there. It's like it's waiting for the taking. So that's all I claim to be doing with these videos, is just drawing connections with stuff that's right in front of our face. And then yet things are also connected. So if you make one connection, that can spawn to many uncanny connections, and even some of them are influencing your lived reality, where you can be learning about something, thinking about something, and then yet no sooner is experiencing something in front of your face with like coincidences that are uncanny. And I actually think that what would be more uncanny than uncanny would be canny. Because if you think about, like, okay, so I last, when I was at my apartment, I may have did this or that when I was in my room, like when I was laying down, and then I left because I had something I needed to do or something I wanted to do. And then so I go about my day, and then I consciously have I'm no longer consciously aware of what I had been doing in my bedroom, where I think to be effective I couldn't afford to be consciously aware of all the things that I did all the time, because I'd be overwhelmed and confounded by that. So yeah, I managed to forget things and remember things conveniently as it serves me if I'm healthy. But then I go back to my room, and things are there in a certain uncanny way. Like there's an order to how things are randomly there, but say, oh yeah, I did leave that there, and I can see why I left that there, and that's connected to that, and that's connected to that. And so it's kind of similar when we're having synchronicities, is that we experience life, we experience people, and we do things, and we interact with people, and we interact with life, and yet we soon forget about the very things we said and did, or what, and then actually the things we said and did are yet carried on and interacted with, and then amount to something, birth to something new for people interacting with what we said or did. But every once in a while, these redound and redouble and come back to us, and we yet experience something that we had already put in motion. And there wasn't anything necessarily outstandingly sophisticated. It's just simply a function. So different things have emanated into different functions as a consequence of what we said or did. And then sometimes we come back to these, and it's like coming back to our disorganized room, where there's actually a certain order within our disorganization. It's just simply a utility, cause and effect. This is why I did that, because this is why I had to do that, and that's what happened, and that was what left over, and then I forgot about it, and then I came back to it, and then it's yet somehow part of that original. There's still a certain order to it. Even within disorder, you can't. I think maybe you actually can't get away from order. Like, you can be as disorganized as you want to be, but that's still yet a function of some form of order. And it might be similar with synchronicities. And then so as you're expanding your mind and making connections, some of the very connections are playing out sometimes in not a long. It doesn't take long for them to play out in synchronicities in your lived experience. And it's both because your lived experience is part of what's happening in your mind and the connections you're making, but also the connections you're making are a function of things that you've said and did prior. And that both the things you've said and did and the connections you are now making are coalescing and combining to make a what you would call synchronicity, or something, a coincidence that's meaningful, and yet also kind of uncanny, but also somewhat canny for being uncanny. And what would be more uncanny would be to simply be canny. So, but I wanted to say that um, is church and what we know of as religion perhaps nothing but a standing contest. So that sounds funny, but are you just having a big standing contest when you go to church? Who can stand, who's the tallest at standing while yet understanding what is beyond what is great and high. So all of us, there's differences in a lot of our different height and stature, but I would imagine that between the earth and the sun, between the earth, the person of shorter stature, and the person of taller stature, and then the sun itself, those different people and their standing are yet relative and very similarly inconsequential in terms of their relationship to the sun. Now, the sun is so sophisticated and exact that actually could stand rather that actually the differences in their stature are more so profound, because great things are subtle, if nothing else, great things are subtle. So the distinctions in our nuance and height and stature are yet profound even under the sun, and could maybe be appreciated by the sun. But still, it stands to reason that that's how ridiculous we sound when we're trying to measure up how tall we stand on Sunday morning in a congregation. And I think that's also why children can't stand church, because what's worse than church, what's worse than all the stuffy people in there, and the cologne and the perfume, and then the dry dense lessons, and then this arbitrary authority of you're supposed to understand the greatness of something without having lived something. All that is very distasteful to a young person, but more so than by and large, it's that standing. Like, it's always about standing in church. Like, the kids got to stand when they don't feel comfortable like that, and then the adults are trying to outstand and stand next to one another all the while, and then it only comes to a head at some point, because who really is the tallest at standing? And sometimes the person who is a little bit shorter of stature would not appreciate someone for being taller of stature, for thinking that they had actually been taller, when in fact the person of shorter stature was actually of a greater stature in other terms. So we're always having a problem with stature in church, and I think that that's much ado about nothing. That's much about what church is about. Is that, what is so you take like a real bad guy, right? That they're not afraid of anybody. They're not afraid to do anything to anybody. But what is the most severe form of punishment you can give to someone that did something heinous? I would suggest that it is to make them look in the eye and see what they did to the family member of someone that they hurt. Can you face what you actually did to someone? Can you feel what you actually did to someone? Because we can't look at, one of the beautiful things about humans is that we can't look at something without being it. So we actually can't look at another person without being them on a level. And when you have hurt another person, whether that person directly, or maybe more even egregious, their family member indirectly, when you look at them, you yet feel them. But I would say that within that, the thing that would scare the bad guy, the thing that actually scares the fire that scares off the big bad wolf, is indignation. Reasonably justified indignation, to think less of a person based on their actual real conduct and misconduct, and really have a real feeling about another person, in terms of indignation, not necessarily righteous indignation, but just simple indignation. None of us can stomach indignation. We can some of you may every once in a while find someone who can stomach, as they think, to a degree, or at least manage contempt. Because I actually don't think none of us can truly manage contempt, but can stomach contempt either. But because it's a form of indignation, but we can yet manage contempt and maybe even be affectionate at a bit with it, be clever, be profit from it. But none of us can really still stand to manage contempt indefinitely, and much more so indignation. So we do different things. So in order for human beings to exist as we had to collaborate, and therefore we had to exist within groups. Families, it would be the stronger term, but group, we had to be in groups, and that requires sophistication and communication. It's been said, I don't have the source, but that some of our greatness as humans, some of it has said that it's related to the opposable thumb, and what we can achieve with what we can manipulate and craft and manage and achieve with a disposable thumb. But some of it is yet also a feature of communication first and foremost. Some of our mental giftedness is a function of communication, and what it takes to facilitate communication. So all I meant to say is that we are necessitated to exist in groups, and part of that is honesty. I'm gonna drive a little bit just because I saw a car pass a couple times in a row. And I normally wouldn't make a video trying to drive anywhere, so we have to it's the finer functions of a human being are reflexive in nature, because you like when you are witnessing something visually, that is being conveyed below your liminal threshold of awareness, and it's more so of a reflex. This is your when you stare up at when you look at the sun and your eyes squint and it hurts, that's actually all of what vision is on different grade. That's the most extreme aspect, but all of your vision is a lesser degree of flinching like that in the presence of light is what is taking place when you are witnessing something. And it's the same with hearing, it's the same with thinking, it's the same with socializing. It's a reflexive function primarily. And so that's why we as humans are constituted in honesty. It's not so much as that honesty is right or wrong, because nature is full of all things that are right and wrong, and in balance, in propriety, at a time and place. Right is not always right, and wrong is not always wrong. So right and wrong are arbitrary, but honesty is not arbitrary, and that's because we simply the dynamics of our existence, and what it takes to exist and to manage and mitigate and overcome dynamics and rigors of an environment. It requires honesty, because our facial expressions, our ideas for communicating, it comes about as a function of honesty. But yet we are so dishonest because we are always we are prone. So all things have a shutdown feature. All things are humbled and balanced. So we are yet honest by nature, and we are yet dishonest also by nature. And so as we engage in dishonesty, we compromise some of our honesty and our ability to communicate and get along, and therefore deal with and manage other people. And we F ourselves over when we're dishonest. But then when we lean towards being honest, we are yet naive and vulnerable, and we also extend ourselves, and we are compromised through our honesty, the same as we are compromised through our dishonesty in the opposite fashion, because we're humbled at all times. But yet honesty is a issue of contention. So all I meant to say is that so we do different things, and we have to do different honest things we have to do different dishonest things while also being honest enough to communicate in order to have our way and survive. That's necessitated by the dynamics of our environment. We have to yet be honest and dishonest both. But as we do so, we compromise our standing in a group. And that's actually a natural part of nature, because there's something called internecine, which is infighting. And infighting will take place in any group of any kind, of any scale, whether it's one-on-one or a million or a billion people. There will be infighting, and that infighting, it vitalizes and it shifts things. It's kind of like, it's similar to like how we are always roving and disgorging and devouring an environment and eating it. We're always filtering the environment through our appetites, but then our conduct also filters itself in groups, to where groups form and then they disband as a feature of infighting, internecine, and that's endemic, and it's unavoidable. But within that, the main issue of contention that breaks up groups is indignation. Contempt being a form of indignation. You did this, and you're bogus for doing this, and you're not a real person for this, and your words don't count because you did this. That's indignation right there, and that's what we actually can't handle when it comes to us. So most people, the reason they're going to church is because they cannot handle some form of indignation that they sense about themselves in their relationships. So they are going there to exist more than existence. If it's not okay just to simply exist, we have to be the most upstanding, the most proper, the most righteous. We have to have the best posture. We're actually most things with perfect posture, it's not viable to have perfect posture. Even a tree, it has to bend and yield. And young people are healthier than older people, more so simply because they don't stand around as much. What is the difference between a young person and between a mature person and a young person? The mature person enjoys standing around. The young person enjoys anything but standing around. Crawl, duck, dodge, climb, leap, jump, run, crawl, duck, anything but stand is a healthy person. And so it's also interesting that some of the greatest things overlap at like the ends of a spectrum. So who could stand taller with more posture and more bearing than a soldier? Yet who could get down and dirty and crawl better than a soldier? That's a paradox right there. But I just wanted to say that by and large, what we understand of as church is a standing contest. We are trying to outstand. We're trying to be outstanding by imitating what is outstanding, and yet outstanding each other to the point of conflict and contention is what goes on inside of a church. But I think that that's not called for in the first place, because it's just, we're already okay. We exist, so we're okay. If we can just focus on health and fun, what's healthy and what's fun, I think we're okay for that. And we do yet have to strive. We do yet need discipline, and we do need propriety in dealing with one another, because we exist within nature, and nature is balanced. So if we do different things egregious to one another to the point that it's not balanced and it's not equitable, then we compromise ourselves and the environment. So that is still called for. So love is always called for. Learning is always called for. But standing around being more outstanding than one another is not called for. So that's all I'm coming from with this one. And I think that whatever, if we can't stand judgment. No one can stand to be judged by anything. Yet again, contempt and indignation is judgment. Judgment is a mode of an expression of indignation, or either commendation or indignation. That's what judgment is. But I would say more so, it's always condemnation. I don't know that you can judge anything without condemning something else. Even if you say you are the greatest in the world, you have therefore condemned the rest of the world. So you cannot judge without condemning. But all I meant to say is that we are making much ado about nothing. And I have also said that a lot of our ideas of religion and faith in the modern context is a function of feudal entitlement, feudal privileges, and feudal lordship. And that is all about standing in the first place. Property and standing go together. There's no possession of property without issues of standing, and there's no issues of standing without issues of property. That's a lot of what's going on inside of a church, but that's not exactly what it means to exist. And if there were anything of a righteous judge, which I think that righteous and judge are oxymoronic statement, to say righteous and judge together, because there's nothing righteous about judging in itself. But if there were such, they would have who would have the greatest standing and the most outstandingness would be the most simple of people, commonly like a child, and because they're the most authentic, and they're trying to do nothing but they're trying to do anything but stand around is what a child would do, or a healthy, vibrant person would want to do anything but stand around, anything but go to church. So that's what I'm coming from with this one. I hope this is of value. And the greatest statements don't have a author or a face to be attributed to. So hopefully the best part of this content is maybe more fitting, since the tablet fell on the floor and I had to talk while I approach a coffee venue. Peace.